These parents locked a 2-year-old boy outside in the freezing cold. Being left outside in the cold has several negative effects. Whether it's from hypothermia, pneumonia, or even a basic cold, all these scenarios increase their risk in the case of a defenseless child. Since it is no secret that being in the process of developing different organs is much more sensitive than those of a person in his or her 20s. For this reason, it is important to use extreme caution while exposing them to extremes in temperature. Many people will be curious as to why, according to a local media source, a lady called Tiara Williams, 23, decided to leave her infant in the care of her boyfriend and the child's father, Darius Parker. This was because she had to run a couple of errands, or at least that was the explanation she gave to Darius, and added that she would be back later when she was done with all her commitments. Since the child was just 2 years old and it was winter, putting him in a nursery didn't seem like a good idea. Additionally, the child was more likely to develop a cold because of his age. The mother believed that she was making the greatest choice after taking into account all of these aspects. However, it appears that she was unaware at the time that Darius had been awake for most of the night and was not in a fit state to look after a tiny child that needed constant attention. The reason why he had been awake all night was that he had been recording music, as that is what he did for a living. The boy managed to crawl to the front entrance of the house when he was by himself with his father. He took a moment before leaving the house and walking onto the porch. Darius was so worn out that he was unaware that it was winter and extremely chilly outside. He was so exhausted and unconscious that he forgot to check to make sure the small child wasn't still outside in the elements when he locked the door and went to bed. This gross carelessness on the part of the father easily reveals two factors that are worth analyzing. The first is that the kid wasn't a regular part of Darius' routine, because if it had been, he would have noticed that the kid wasn't in the house. Furthermore, Darius himself was probably ignorant of how fatigued he was, and even if he was, agreeing to take care of the child was a blatant act of irresponsibility. Since it is always convenient to stay awake and active in the company of others in order to keep up with them. The infant, unfortunately, suffered from severe hypothermia since his frail body couldn't withstand the fierce winter weather that swept across the city all day. He spent a total of 2 hours outside while his mother and 4-year-old brother ran errands. When they arrived to pick him up, the young mother's whole life flashed before her eyes as she saw the little boy outside and quickly set out to call 911. She was trembling as she informed the caller that the infant was frozen. After the event, cops showed up at the young couple's door and pressed charges against them for leaving their child alone outside. According to the prosecutor handling the case, both Tiara and Darius pleaded guilty in November to child endangerment. You can never have too many preventive measures to take when you have children or are planning to look after a youngster. Since the biggest motivation for children to learn is curiosity, it is a grave error to undervalue any motor abilities or cognitive abilities they may have. Because of this, whenever parents or teachers try to teach their children something new, they strive to do so using components that will catch their attention and pique their interest. This way it is easier for them to be attentive to what they want to be taught. Snow will surely be an allure that a 2-year-old baby cannot resist, especially if they are warned about it. Children at this age lack the awareness required to realize the threat and know how to avoid it. When the mother of the defendant, Angela Williams, found out, she was horrified and pleaded with the judge to show mercy. She added that Tiara was a good mother, that she had made a poor choice, and that she had endured much pain for her. After consideration, the judge gave his daughter complete and unrestricted release. Given that the charge of harming a child carries a sentence of up to 3 years in prison, he was actually rather kind. The judge explained that he spent a lot of time trying to figure out who was at fault in this case. Many people who have hurried to conclusions could argue that since the father was caring for the child, he is to blame. The truth is that because she lived with him for the longest period of time, she had to make sure he was completely capable of caring for the baby. In the end, the judge found both Tierra and Darius guilty and sentenced them to between 18 months and 2 years in prison. In addition, he underlined that caring for children should be a person's top priority when they have children, which was obviously not the case for these parents. He claimed that 2-year-olds who are left alone can encounter a variety of hazardous scenarios, such as wandering too close to a pool and drowning or consuming poison. In the end, a baby's life was lost, and as the judge said, we will never know who she may have been or what she may have done with her life. Tierra Williams felt genuinely remorseful and is happy to serve her sentence. She might never be able to forgive herself for the actions she and her ex-boyfriend took, but at least she will have paid a small fraction of her debt to society. Judging this mother who lost her son is also not the right thing to do, as she surely never imagined that such a thing could happen. Regardless of how many or little skills a mother may have, they all share the trait of always wanting what is best for their children. It is necessary to point out that mothers who suffer the loss of a child, and if it is in any way related to any action performed by those mothers, develop a very deep trauma that is difficult to overcome. After this horrible incident, the parents eventually split up after the winter. However, under the guidance of County Child Services, they shared custody of their other 2 kids.